Okay, I believe we are live now. Greetings, everyone. Just making sure. Uh, okay, can I be heard, Helen? Nanaya?
Yes, sir.
Okay. This is my first time doing it. Um, so greetings, everyone. Welcome to another broadcast from Countering Racism White Supremacy Book Club. Switching it up a little bit today. Today it's Kweku and Helen BEE. And we have our guests on the panel, Nanaya, as well with us, hoping if anybody else would like to join. But we're doing a broadcast today on Area 3. Prepared a little presentation. You know, I do things a little bit differently sometimes. Prepared a little presentation here for the viewers. Before we get into it, is there anything, Helen, you'd like the people to know? Or Nanaya, anything you want the people to know?
Mm, Please learn about as much as you can about racism, white supremacy, what it is, and how it works. I will suggest a few books. Race Code War by uh, Kara Inaharo. I hope I'm pronouncing that right.
Mhm.
And definitely get the code. And yeah, I'm really excited for this business meeting today.
I too as well. This has been a long time in the making. Thank you, Helen, for that. As a reminder, we do have our book study for Race Code War, like Helen mentioned, Race Code War by Kari Inaharo, Sundays at 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern. And I don't know what time that is for our London folk. But I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and get this broadcast underway. Can everybody see that? All right. So today our broadcast titled Area 3, Do These Black Entertainers Know the Code? Been seeing a lot of stuff about entertainment as being a victim, being somebody who's classified as Black. I think entertainment is something that rules and controls the minds of many Black people, non-white people all over the planet. And a lot of times our entertainers, these Black entertainers are propped up to us as leaders, so-called leaders. So the point of this broadcast today is, do these Black entertainers know the code? I think a lot of us who've studied racism, white supremacy in the code book already know the answer to this. But let's go and let's go in a little bit more.
And to learn about the other areas, which are the 9 areas of people activity, please buy the code book. We're just talking about one area today, area 3, entertainment.
Thank you. Yeah. So get your copy of the code book. The code book today, that's the book on the left. We also have the ISIS papers on the right. These are two great books that have greatly alleviated the confusion I have tremendously suffered from under the system of racism, white supremacy. I now understand, but I'm still learning. I understand what the system of racism, white supremacy is and how it works, but I'm still learning. So go ahead and get your copy of the code book today at producejustice.com. There are plenty of resources on there, broadcasts. If you so-called don't like reading, but reading is more important than watching television. There's plenty of broadcasts to listen to. Could learn something tremendous from that. Just a suggestion.
And if you don't like reading, you don't enjoy reading, CRWS on YouTube, they have a reading of the ISIS papers, to my understanding. Is that right? Is that correct, Kwaku?
Absolutely, absolutely correct. We have a in our archives. We have a book study I think we have 2 book studies on the ISIS papers. But great information. We even have a book study on the code book as well that we did last year. So you can go ahead and catch that as well. Whatever it takes. If you are classified as non-white, you may be a victim of racism. I know I'm a victim of racism. Those are my only pronouns, really, victim of racism. So I know that the code book is something that I need to read and understand. Moving on. Oh, and then the famous Neely Fuller quote: "If you do not understand racism, white supremacy, what it is and how it works, everything else will only confuse you." Really think about that. Really come to terms with that.
And for an example of what this means, right? Okay, you want to solve the problem of racism. So you might just look at education, not understanding that politics, economics, all the other areas of people activity affect education. So you can't solve the problem in just one area and you're solving it for everything. No, you have to solve the whole problem. And that's only by eliminating the system of racism, white supremacy.
Absolutely agree. That's where it comes in. If you don't know what it is and how it works, it's all intermingled. They're all part of a bigger picture. We can't just solve one area and forget about the others. We have to understand what it is and how it works to make any kind of ground. Completely agree. Next, we're going to get into some definitions. Something that is tremendously important when talking about racism, white supremacy. We need to understand the words that are being said, what they mean. So we need to understand the definitions. I prepared a couple of definitions. If for some reason there's more words that we missed, go ahead and leave a comment. Hit us up in the live chat. Maybe we can address it right then and there. But I'm gonna go ahead and talk about these definitions. Our first definition, if you want to go ahead, Helen.
Racism, white supremacy. This is the definition. A global system of people who classify themselves as white and are dedicated to abusing and or subjugating everyone in the known universe whom they classify as not white.
Great definition. This is the definition that we'll be using today. Oftentimes, there would probably be only one thing I would add, is that, the conscious and unconscious part of it. A lot of times you'll see white people try to say it's not racism because it was unconscious or they were unaware of it. I have unfortunately concluded that many white people are practicing racism, whether they're aware of it or not. To me, if you're practicing racism is practicing racism. That's all there is to it. I totally agree with this definition. If you don't agree with it, once again, leave a comment, hit us up in the live chat. So tell us what your definition is. But this is either true or it's not.
Correct.
Okay, moving on. So racial showcasing confusion. This is one of 6 major racist white supremacist strategies for confusion. All 6 strategies are found in the code book. So go ahead and grab your copy today if you want to know what the other 5 are. So this applies to the racist white supremacists taking large numbers of non-white people and putting them out front. The racist white supremacists sometimes carefully select and give great amounts of money and or publicity to large but carefully controlled numbers of non-white people. This is sounding very interesting. The racist white supremacists sometimes present or showcase the chosen non-white person as extremely wealthy, extremely comfortable, and or mostly falsely extremely powerful. The racist white supremacists showcase these selected non-white people as being totally successful, not being victimized by and or not being subject to the system of white supremacy, racism. So this is straight out of the code book, word for word. There are many things I remember from the code book, but this is one of the things that sticks with me, mainly because, like I mentioned earlier in the broadcast, entertainers, Area 3 entertainment. That is where a lot of victims of racism, non-white people, get their information from, unfortunately. And this also reminds me, a lot of times when uh, people start talking about race or racism on these networks like ESPN or CNN, they often talk about how successful some of these Black people are. Well, these Black people are making money. They have a lot of influence over people, but that is a part of the confusion, the racial showcasing confusion that the racist white supremacist is using to confuse masses of non-white people. They will put chosen non-white people out front and show them as extremely wealthy and or powerful, but that is false. That is a falsehood. That is not truth. I mean, I can't point to a non-white person that is extremely powerful, has power. They may be wealthy, quote unquote, or racist white supremacists control all the money on the planet, but they may appear wealthy, but they do not have power. That is completely different. Anything else to add from the panel?
If something for non-white people who are listening to this broadcast, something to think about. If these so-called wealthy people, non-white people, if they're so powerful, how come they how come they are mistreated at times? Shouldn't you be able to avoid the mistreatment or stop the mistreatment or prevent mistreatment from white people if they're so powerful, if you're so wealthy? Ask yourself that. That's just something I want people to think about.
Completely agree. A number of so-called NFL players um, being stopped by the police, being racially profiled, whatever that means, and being hopefully powerless. Can't do anything. Can't control. Can't do anything about it. Shows that they are not powerful. They may be wealthy, but they are not powerful. All right, moving on.
Area 3,
Sorry, go ahead.
entertainment, one of 9 areas of people activity. Many non-white people waste too much time, energy, and money by promoting and or participating in frivolous parties and social gatherings. Most so-called most so-called social gatherings of non-white people are not are none other than excuses to show off or gossip and or engage in nitpicking or um, malicious plotting. And a good example of that, birthday parties, so-called birthday parties, baby showers. Instead of us doing those things, celebrating for what? To be mistreating, spending money that we don't have, right? And for DJs and gifts and stuff like that, let's come together and have a business meeting. Meaning, let's sit down with each other, have a list of all of our problems, and see where we could solve each other problems. I think that would be a much more constructive way of spending our time and energy and money. Anything, Kweku, to add to that?
Yes, completely agree. One of 9 areas of people activity. The all the areas of people activity. I'm gonna name them all off to my best. Education, entertainment. Oh no, I already missed one. Sorry. Economics, education, entertainment, labor law, politics, religion, sex, war. So 9 areas of people activity. We're covering area 3
War,
today.
wait, war and counter war. Don't forget
War
that.
and counter war. Thank you. As you can see by the second bullet point, many non-white people waste too much time, energy, and money promoting, participating in frivolous parties and social gatherings. We really need to think about this one because I think there are way too many problems in the world and on the planet. Black people, non-white people have way too many problems to be spending so much time and energy in social gatherings, parties, and showing off. I think we don't own any banks, any land as a collective group, but we will spend a lot of time and energy partying, on social gatherings, etc. So that's something that we should start thinking about as a collective. we are a community, but individually, united, independent. Start thinking about that. All right, so now we're gonna get into the clips. Prepare some clips for us to watch, specifically with dealing with Black entertainers and Black entertainers talking about race and racism. I'm gonna go ahead and get started. First one. Okay. No, I forgot to share my sound. How to share? Oh.
You look at Troy's and his choices. Initially, you get a negative reaction, but then when you try to understand him, go beyond what we see, we find that this is a good man who has been unjustly treated. I mean, this is a man who had big dreams and he ended up collecting garbage. Is this a fair assessment of him and his behavior?
You know, the thing about great writing, August Wilson, Eugene O'Neill, you name it, Arthur Miller, Tennessee Williams, there's so many layers. It's not just one thing. It's open to interpretation. You know, I've heard people say things, well, I felt he was this and that. I was like, oh, I never thought about that, but okay. You know, people ask me, well, what do I want them to get from the film? I say, well, it depends upon what they bring to it. So what you see in Troy or feel about Troy has to do with your own life and, standards and all of you.
Well, it's not only about anybody's life. It's, in a way, he personifies the Black American experience. He's somebody who, had he not faced the racial discrimination, he could have been a great athlete, a star. But because of that, he ended up a garbage collector. And perhaps this self-destructiveness, was it caused by racial discrimination? And is that the effect of racial discrimination on people?
Here's the thing you got to remember. When you talk about racial and you talk about discrimination, what if he just wasn't good enough? See, it's so easy to just say, oh, it's because of this. It's because of racism. Oh, I didn't get the job because of that. Maybe you weren't good enough. Maybe, like his wife says, you were just too old. She says, why don't you just admit it? You were too old. He's the one that's hung up on,
But we know for a fact that so many talented African Americans who don't achieve their goals, or they're prevented or deprived from achieving their big dreams because of their skin color. I'll give you an example, Globetrotters. They were much better basket players than the white guys, but they were not allowed to play in the big league. Mm-hmm. Don't you think it is the problem is the racial discrimination?
The right word is not is, was.
Was.
And that's not the only problem. That's one of the problems. Now, you can make it the only one if you'd like, but it's not the only one. But that's a fact. That's a fact. They couldn't play basketball in the NBA. Well, their grandfathers couldn't walk on the sidewalk, or they were slaves. So each generation is trying to do better for the next generation. That's what Rose could see by wanting her son to get an education, but Troy couldn't see. For him, his son doing better was him getting his son a job at the sanitation department. For his wife, the son doing better was getting a good education and going to college. So each generation, regardless of race, each generation, Polish, African American, whatever, is usually trying to help the next.
Kweku, have you watched the film Fences?
I believe I have, actually. I have seen it. I saw it some time ago. I can't remember when I saw it, but I have seen it. There is a lot there. Well, first off, I thought it was very interesting how, the the commentator, the person interviewing Denzel Washington, victim of racism, kind of, he kind of starts switching it up, right? They were talking about the movie, now he's talking about race relations, or sorry, racism. and it definitely, I think, caught Denzel Washington off guard. It seems like he was trying to show that he's not smart, or he himself is thinking a different way. I don't know. I can't speak for Denzel Washington, but that's something that I noticed that was going on there. Anything you want to add, Helen?
It seemed like to me that Denzel Washington wanted to obviously talk about the film, and this guy wanted to talk about racism, talk about discrimination, and he used the character, Denzel Washington's character, as a segue into just focusing on that. To me,
Yes, masterfully done.
yes,
Can I add?
yes.
Okay, and then just to add, this is not how y'all speaking. Wow, there's just so many things to talk about, but I also think like as a Black person in entertainment, you almost have to be always prepared to talk about quote unquote racism, because white people love talking about it. They love talking about it and not doing anything about it. So you always have to be prepared, especially with a role like this in this film. It's almost obvious that someone's going to bring up a race factor. But I think the first thing too, when someone who doesn't know about racism or wants to speak about racism, they should simply say, I don't know, instead of filling it with a lot of words, because people are watching. And I think one of the words too that he brought up is, oh, can this person didn't get the job or the role because of his skin color? And then he also mentioned, well, it also could have been because he wasn't good enough. And that is oftentimes what white people tell us is, oh, you didn't make cuts. Oh, you weren't the fastest person. Oh, you weren't good enough. And we kind of just run with that. It's almost like an illusion. It's not about if we're good enough or ever will be if we're good enough, because in the eyes of a white person, we're never going to be good enough. So I think that statement was kind of, should have just been an I don't know answer. And then also I think when he said, also the words he was using almost implied that he believes in some type of progression, or the idea of, oh, things are getting better. Oh, my grandfather or his grandfather wasn't able to walk on the streets. This person wasn't able to do this. This person wasn't able to do that. And this person now can do this and now can do that. So I think the idea of progression is what I believe, especially when it comes to racism. They say, well, at least you aren't picking cotton right now. At least you're not doing this. But it's like, well, instead of people hanging us on trees, they just lock us up in prison. Instead of hanging us on trees, they just shoot us dead in the streets. And they kind of just continue on masquerading, and we have this mask going on. So I think Denzel's position right now almost sways people to believe the lies that the white people are already telling us. So it's almost like a setup in his point. I think he should have just said, I don't know, to all the questions, and we could have moved forward. But he's positioning himself as a Black male in America, which he is. So I think if he's going to position himself like that, he should read a few books and then respond, or just say, I don't know. I love saying that I don't know phrase.
Yes, that is something that we, or I, have to get comfortable with, saying I don't know. A lot of times I find myself assuming and thinking I know something, then I'll go look it up and I'm like, oh, I was off. I was completely incorrect. I was wrong about that. I'm close to it, and we always want to be as accurate as possible. It's something that was mentioned when Denzel Washington said, oh, well, maybe he wasn't good enough. That, like Nana said, that's something that white people say about us when they practice racism against us, and they make it our fault by saying, oh, well, maybe you weren't good enough, right? So yeah, I'm just gonna leave it at that. Anything else I want to say?
I have one more thing to add. Also the whole thing too about what I mentioned about like progression and how it's like, well, it is projected as of right now, it is projected that racism will get better. Like we're allowing Black people into certain workforces in certain areas of entertainment, certain roles, whatever. But I also, every time we talk about racism, it always shifts to the conversation of Pain Olympics. Like, oh, who has it worse? Oh, are you telling me that white people don't like suffer in any sort of way? And it almost becomes this back and forth of Pain Olympics. Like there are ancestors that have it worse than we have it today, or whatever the Pain Olympics starts, or wherever you want to go with it. But I think that always is another conversation when it comes to like entertainment too. When it's, oh well, at least Black people are now getting roles in certain entertainment, or even just getting in the entertainment workforce or in the field in general. That's like a step up. So it's very interesting.
Something else that was mentioned, I don't know if it was Denzel Washington. Oh, no, I think it was Denzel Washington said that the film was open to interpretation. So I would like to know what white people got while watching this film and what Black people got while watching this film. What interpretation of the film did they get? What messages were sent through this film?
Agreed. If we've learned anything from Race Code War is that when we're digesting media symbols, Black people get a whole set of different, get a whole different set of, like information compared to what white people receive. White people receive something totally different from what Black people receive. One thing that Naya brought up that I thought was interesting was how he seemed unprepared to talk about racism. And if there's one thing that the code book teaches us is that racism is embedded in everything that we do. As victims of racism, we are suffering, we are under constant domination and threat of racism. So if there's one thing that code book teaches us is we should be prepared to talk about racism. And we need to be codified in how we deal with racism. So if Denzel Washington had read the code book, I think he would have been much more prepared to answer those questions. He would have been much more expecting of those kind of questions. So I thought it's very interesting. And also what I'm seeing already on this is that, you know, a certain type of victim who's being racist man and racist woman like a certain type of victim, right? To be racially showcased. They like the victims who believe in this idea because of progress, right? Things are getting better. Then Denzel Washington, you know, he's a victim of racism, so he's entitled to think whatever he wants about racism. A lot of entertainers think that things are getting better. A lot of victims of racism who aren't entertainers think things are getting better. You know, and that's that's their VGQ, I guess. But for me, I don't think things are getting better. I think that black people, non-white people are more confused than ever about racism. And this is what, and this little clip, that it for me is kind of showcasing that confusion. That just because Black people are allowed in more places than they were before, we've suddenly gotten better. And just because Black people aren't being, you know, killed in broad daylight as much as they were back in, I don't know, the 60s, the 50s, things are getting better. I don't believe that's true. I think that racism has been refined, and the practice of racism is definitely a lot more covert, and it's a lot more confusing for the victims if we don't understand what it is and how it works.
But non-white people are being killed, maimed, and mistreated in broad daylight. And it's caught on, you know, cell phones and plenty of witnesses. So, no, white people don't care. Yeah. So no, nothing has changed. It's recycled and refined, but really nothing has changed. Yeah, it's all about practicing racism, white supremacy. It's all about deception an illusion, given the appearance, and that's what we're talking about today, given the appearance like, oh, things have changed, things are different, and they are not.
Absolutely agree with you, Helen. Absolutely agree. I see Mr. Jola Carter wants to get an invite. Greetings, Jola. I'm putting it in the chat right now. Hopefully you're able to get it. Never done this before, so just let me know if it works or not. There you go. All right, so moving on to anything else? Anything else on this particular clip? This one was
the term fair. The term fair was used, F-A-I-R, and I always suggest that non-white people find a really old dictionary, look up the term fair, and see, and when you're talking about fair, or when that term is mentioned, see if you could replace the term fair with white and see if it changes the conversation or the context of the conversation or not. That is, yeah, that has been very helpful for me. And fair, most of the time, 9 times out of 10, it means white, not what you might think about balance.
And then just to add as well, as also when you're thinking about entertainment or just like racial showcasing or just like seeing, or anyways, regardless, but anyways, thinking about people in entertainment positions, I think it's important that we're not looking at the entertainer specifically, but we're looking at how racism, white supremacy affected the entertainer. And because the entertainer, regardless, like Denzel Washington, he's just responding to racism. Regardless of what anything he does, that's his response to racism. So just as we're thinking about this and as the conversation is going and you're listening to us speak about it, just make sure in your mind that you're remembering, we're not like judging Denzel Washington of his actions, but we're just pointing out how racism, white supremacy has impacted Denzel Washington or just entertainers in general.
completely agree. To add to that point, if a white person had said, was right, racism was an issue, I think Black people, non-white people would have been up in arms about it. Oh man, I can't believe this guy said that about blah blah blah. But one tactic, the racial showcasing confusion. Once again, they put a Black person out front to do it and says it, and then oh, the victims will accept it a little bit more. They'll listen to it. Oh, that makes a little bit more sense this time. Oh, that doesn't sound so bad. Maybe he's onto something. That's the kind of refinement of racism. That's what racist man, racist woman want to be happening. They want us to be confused about it. I just want to add that point as well. Anything else? Welcome, Jola. Good to have you here. Anything else before I play the next clip? Do you want to make a comment, Jola? See, you don't have a mic right now. It's okay. I'll give you a couple minutes and I'll move on to the next clip.
I go out.
All right, I'm gonna go ahead and play the next clip.
I go out.
When you watch.
Okay. All right, so this one's a compilation video. Plenty here. I'll try to pause it throughout the clip. If anybody on the panel has anything they want to say, just go ahead and try and get my attention. But I'll try and pause it on some different thoughts and whatnot, and go ahead and do that.
Do you think that race plays a part in wealth distribution, or either a mindset that you can't
Today?
or cannot? Yeah.
No,
You don't?
no, I don't. Hey, you and I, we're proof. Why would race have anything to do with it? Put your mind to what you want to do and go for that. It's kind of like religion to me. It's a good excuse for not getting there.
Where are we in the United States of America in race relations and what you see from day to day in your life?
Skip, they wouldn't want to ask me that. They wouldn't want my answer to represent it because God knows I have been nothing but blessed. My whole path, these 33 years have been nothing but a blessing. I have never, and never is a strong word, I've never dealt with racism, and I'm glad I didn't have to.
Okay, that is some pretty strong statements there. I had to pause it on that one. Especially the last clip with Lil Wayne, the Black entertainer known as Lil Wayne. First of all, I think this guy's name is Skip, or I think he's a sports broadcaster. He's frequently on ESPN. I have no idea when that was done, that interview, but he is talking about racism. And he, first of all, sportscaster, white male, talking about racism on his show. And who does he decide to ask about racism? Victim known as Lil Wayne. Now, Lil Wayne, he definitely said some things. That's his VGQ. But racist man, racist woman will oftentimes put people in front of us like this to talk about that. Talk about things like, talk about how they've never experienced racism. I think it's quite shocking the amount of abuse that Lil Wayne has endured, that he doesn't believe he's experienced racism. That's interesting. My question to Lil Wayne would be, how have you not experienced racism, and what can you show me? Like, can you help me so I don't also have to experience racism? But I think that was, masterfully done by the racist white supremacists, having Lil Wayne on the show and asking him that question. Of all the Black people to ask, who study racism, decide to ask Lil Wayne about it. Any thoughts from the panel?
Something that I would ask Lil Wayne, okay, if you haven't experienced racism, white supremacy, and something that you said earlier about how was he able to, for that not to happen to him in all his years of existing, I would ask, okay, then why do you drink lean? And yeah, well, why do you behave the way you do? Why do you do the things that you do if you've never experienced racism, white supremacy? Because you look like you're under a lot of stress. Look like you have been mistreated, sir. That's what I would ask him. And like you said, out of all the people to ask, not Neely Fuller, not Dr. Frances Cress Wellesley, I know she's not here today, but back then, nobody thought to ask, even Mr. Amos, Dr. Amos Wilson. You're asking an entertainer? Wow. Yeah, that right there is a mockery.
Agreed. So, common practice by the racist white supremacists. That one reminded me of when Joe Biden was interviewing Cardi B. Man, gotta laugh to keep from crying, because that was appalling. I don't know what other people thought about that, but that's what that scene reminded me of. I know Cardi B's not a Black person, but non-white. So, okay, I'm gonna play some more, unless anybody else anything else to say.
Morgan
There is
Freeman.
a class of colored people.
Sorry, go ahead.
The first clip with Morgan Freeman.
Mhm.
I think that I sense fear, and he wants to stay employed. He has bills to pay. He has a attempted family to support. So I could understand his response. I don't agree with it, but VGQ, he has a right to say whatever it is that he wants to say and speak on when it comes to racism, white supremacy.
Agreed. That's a great point.
And and that's something that we have to learn as non-white people. Allow people to say and express express themselves in any way, shape, or fashion when it comes to talking about racism or white supremacy. Stop trying to yell someone else down. That's exactly what racist man and racist woman, that's what they want us to do. They want us to be at each other's throat and pick, oh, see what he said? Oh, da, 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 and name call and everything else. Let's not do that. I mean, Morgan Freeman having his opinion about racism, it doesn't affect us at all. At all. It doesn't change, your situation. Does it stop your bills from coming or from you paying bills? So let's let people speak their mind and express themselves.
Agreed. Agreed. More like Helen mentioned, fear. Morgan Freeman is in the movie industry. White people run the movie industry, so why would he come out and start speaking about racism and how white people are practicing racism, even if he was about in the business of doing that, but he has bills to pay, like Helen said. Many victims are afraid to lose their income, myself included. I'm afraid to lose my income. Many victims are afraid to lose their income. So it shouldn't be surprising it's to be expected under the conditions and under the system of racism, white supremacy, to find many victims reacting like this and saying these type of things. I'm gonna go ahead and continue the clip.
People who make a business of keeping the troubles, the wrongs, and the hardships of the Negro race before the public. Some of these people do not want the Negro to lose his grievances because they do not want to lose their jobs. There is a certain class of race problem solvers who don't want the patient to get well. That was said by Booker T. Washington.
How are we going to get rid of racism until...
Stop talking about it. I'm going to stop calling you a white man.
Yeah.
And I'm going to ask you to stop calling me a black man.
You know, it's frustrating to me that people take race and they make it personal. You know what I mean? Like we're at a loss in this generation. If you look at it in the 80s, Archie Bunker was a stark racist. Stark. If you don't know who Archie Bunker is, look him up. All in the Family, great show. The Jeffersons, stark racist. Fred Sanford, stark racist. But you know what black people and white people did? They laughed. You watch 48 Hours with Eddie Murphy and Nick Nolte. Both of them hated each other because he was black and because he was white. You know what they did? They laughed.
But I ask you what the...
Go ahead, Helen.
Notice how Morgan Freeman's not name calling or picking on him, but notice how Morgan Freeman said, I'm going to ask you to stop calling me, what did he say? What did he say?
Man.
Yes. No. Yeah, ask. That's very important. Very important. He oh wow. I don't even want to comment on him, but yeah, very interesting. And what's his name? Mackie?
Anthony Mackie?
No, that's not Anthony Mackie. The one that was just on the screen a minute ago. Something Mackie.
Yeah, it's Anthony, I believe.
It's Anthony? Okay, Anthony Mackie. Another very interested, extremely confused victim. He might not see himself as a victim, but I've heard him, make quite very interesting comments when it comes to racism, white supremacy. And yeah, okay, just go ahead. I apologize.
No problem. Thank you for your contributions. Joel, I see your hands raised, bud. Jola, see your hands raised. I can't hear you if you're speaking. See you're unmuted, but I still can't hear you. Is it me or can anybody else hear Jola?
Nope, I don't hear him.
So going back to what Morgan Freeman said.
Wait a minute, Jola, if you can hear us, type in your comment and somebody will try to read it out.
Thank you. So going back to what Morgan Freeman was saying, one thing that is important was he's talking about, racial classifications. Doesn't want to be called a black man anymore. Doesn't want to be called a white man. And like Helen pointed out, he has to ask, who's he asking? A white person. White people created race. They create the concept of race. So I mean, it's only right you ask a white person to get rid of the classification of race. I don't know how stop talking about racism would benefit us as victims. So that's something that I would ask Morgan Freeman about if I had the opportunity to, but I'm sure that's what Racist Man, Racist Woman promote. They want us to all stop talking about the issues that are happening to many victims of racism because of their racial classification, because they've been classified as not white, because they've been classified as Black. Well, the amount of injustice that we receive based on that classification, I am sure Racist Man, Racist Woman would love for us to stop talking about it. There was also, with Anthony Mackie, what he was saying as well, I believe that Racist Man and Racist Women find racism funny. They find it hilarious. They find that when Black people are being mistreated for being Black, it is hilarious for them. They love it. So of course they will make a sitcom out of it. They will make a sitcom out of the dynamic, the racial dynamic, and how the white person doesn't like the Black person doesn't like the white person. But at the end of the day, the white person holds all the power, holds all the playing cards. The Black person is just subject to mistreatment, subject to racism. And Racist Man, Racist Woman find that entertaining.
Oh, now I know what I wanted to say, the point I lost it earlier. What you just said. And Morgan Freeman, what he said about not talking about it, yeah, correct, Kweku. White people love when we don't talk about it, or when we do talk about it, we're inaccurate in the terms that we use. Oh, they get off on it. They will invite us everywhere to speak, but when they know that we're going to speak and with using inaccurate terms. That's why we must be as accurate as possible and know the words that we are using when we use them.
Agreed. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and keep playing the clip. Jolot, if you managed to get your question in the chat, go ahead and read it for you. Hopefully you're working on your mic situation. Let me go ahead and continue.
Racial breakdown was of your audience. Do you remember this? You told me the only Black face you could see in the whole audience was your makeup artist. I believe that's what you said. She was in the front row, right? A lot of white kids love rap.
Yes.
Explain that. What does that say to you? What's the message of it? What's the bigger picture of it?
I don't want to be bashed because I don't want to sound like I'm on the wrong if there is a side, but I thought that was clearly a message that there was no such thing as racism. That's what I thought that was.
Okay, I had to stop that one because that was a big one. But for me, under a system of racism, white supremacy, many non-white people, many Black people, do not have the expendable income to attend these expensive concerts. White people do. They have all the resources and money to attend those kind of concerts. So it's easy for me to understand why Lil Wayne would think he's not being. He didn't say it, but a lot of times, oftentimes, rappers say they're not supported by other Black people. I suspect he could be confused, but that's my comments for that one. Anybody got any other comments? I'll go ahead and play.
Excellent point when it comes to finances. And what I've noticed that white people, they'll stand out in the rain and for 2-3 days to get tickets and spend hundreds of dollars, sometimes thousands of dollars on concert tickets. And with non-white people, from what I've noticed, when non-white people are waiting out, it's to get services, it's to get help. Yeah, and that's something that, you know, we should pay attention to.
Agreed. Missing an hour of work for a non-white person, that could be deadly. Well, white people got all the time in the world to waste.
I said, and it's probably get me in trouble, but I said to some of my colleagues recently, I know that it's an issue, but it seems like every single day on television I'm talking about race, and it's because of the news cycle, it's in the news, but sometimes I get so tired of talking about it. I want to just go, this is over, can we move on?
And if you talk about it, it exists.
Right.
Yeah. It's not like it exists and we refuse to talk about it, but making it a bigger issue than it needs to be is the problem we have.
And right now, we are in a society where we can't have a conversation because no one's willing to listen.
People are just shouting.
People are just shouting. People are walking down the street, hashtagging everything, but no one's listening.
Using wrong examples to present an argument leads us nowhere forward. I understand the emotion and I respect my opposition, but when you go into the areas of making false charges and living in the past, you do not address the issues of the present.
And, you know, incarceration rates in America has been a problem, especially as opposed to minorities. And Roman delves into the issues around the legal system. Do you think we've made any headway in the
I think it's more important to make headway in our own house. By the time the system comes into play, the damage is done. They're not locking up 7-year-olds.
In the 1960s,
So I just wanted to talk about.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, I can.
All right, I'm muting myself.
Okay. So talking about what Denzel Washington just said, victim of racism. I found that to be, slightly confusing, because he does, make a good point, in my opinion, right, about having to do something in our homes. I think it's important that as victims of racism, we need to be speaking to our children. I don't have any children, for the record.
Wait a minute, Kweku. We don't have homes, no
Oh,
houses.
Thank you. In our
We have
dwelling.
residents, we have dwellings, we have victim camps, we have cells.
Thank you. So we need to speak to our attempted children in our victim units about racism, so that they can become codified and do their best under the conditions that they're give them a chance. Right now, too, I think far too many attempted children in general are going out into the world and they are left defenseless because they don't know what racism is, they don't think it affects them, and so on. It was confusing because he said they weren't locking up, thank you, Kweku Dromo, offspring, thank you very much. It was confusing because he said they're not locking up 7-year-olds, but they are definitely, race soldiers are definitely killing 7-year-old offspring and younger. It doesn't matter. The qualification to be for mistreatment is your skin color. That's all that matters. It's becoming abundantly clear that age has nothing to do with it. That's my only observation on that one. So racist man, racist woman, once again.
Something else that they're not locking up 7-year-olds. When a minor, when an offspring, when a young child, non-white child is in school, there's an article, I can't remember at the moment, but yes, the child was about 6 or 7, and supposedly the teacher said that the child was being disruptive and authorities was called and they did lock up. As far as, put handcuffs on him and put him inside of a police car as a way of teaching him a lesson. I will try to find the article. So yes, they are locking up, putting the handcuffs on them as young as 5, 6, 7. So that actor was incorrect in that, but maybe he didn't know. Maybe he hadn't read the article or what have you. But yes, it does happen. How young children are mistreated.
And then also just to add to that, you brought up offspring. So I just lost no, okay, I got it. So when I'm thinking of, they mentioned 7-year-olds not being in prison, blah, 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 locked up regardless. But when you start thinking about like the education system and how the education system is set up, especially for non-white people to not succeed, and just like the rules and regulations as a child, because we go to school at what? If you go to pre-K, that's before 5 years old. You're very much headed that way. You're very much being indoctrinated at that age, especially if your attempted parents aren't talking about racism, white supremacy in the house.
Can I be heard?
Yes, you can.
Okay. So one of the things I've concluded is it goes back to the language, and because we don't even, most non-white people, most Black people don't have a definition of what racism is. This is why this is why you have these responses, because they don't have an actual clear definitive definition of what racism is.
And let me cut in real quick. Joe, not only do they not have a definition, either they don't have a definition or they're using Webster's dictionary definition, and that definition is from who? White people. Go
Exactly.
ahead. Apologize.
No, it's fine. Exactly. And that's important, because that definition basically says anybody. First you have to, one of the things, the key about that definition is the word race. And so we all believe and been told that we are members of a race. And so the fact that we've been told that we're members of a race, and the way the definition is set or made or given, it says that anybody can be racist, and so as long as you're a member of a race and you have these, you fit these categories or whatever, you could be racist. And so that's why a lot of that's why most, actually in my view, most Black people think the way they think. Most Black people, there was somebody on Mr. Fuller's not Mr. Fuller, Carl Nelson show, who called in, who said something similar like, hey, I don't think all Black people, all white people are racist. I don't think they're inherently racist. I think it's there's some white people who treated me better than some Black people, and this and that and other. So it's the confusion of racism and white supremacy is extremely powerful. And they are mass, like Mr. Fuller always say, they're masses of words. And to me, it all boils and goes back to the words and how words are used, and and lack of definition. And yeah, that's all I had to say.
Completely agree. That is why racist man, racist woman, they continue to put these Black entertainers in front of us, racially showcase them. And they all have a similar thought and pattern, thought, speech, and behavior, right? I think that's something that we're observing here, is that in order to be racially showcased, in order for racist man and racist woman to pick you, you have to think, act, and behave in a certain manner. And they get on with the resources that they're provided, and then they start promoting the confusion. I don't blame them. I blame the racist system, racist man, and racist women who put them there. All right, I'm gonna go ahead and before I continue, I'm gonna go ahead and read the chat a little bit. Peaceful greetings, everyone. I see Kweku Dromo, Ray L. I don't know how to pronounce MHF by so Ray L. Creating a utopia will not dissolve a system of racism, white supremacy. Agree. You cannot have a utopia as long as racism, white supremacy exists. VOMRED. Thank you, Kweku earlier for offspring. Ray L again. Money is a tool of economics, the use of time and energy. When you have a lot of tools from economics, you more than likely spend a deal of time and energy failing to engage against racism, fear. Oh, that's interesting. Okay. VORONG. I think VOR means victim of racism. Not sure what ONG means. All right. Anything else from the panel? I'm going to go ahead and continue. Thank you all for engaging. Continue to chat with us.
80+% of blacks were two-parent homes. Today, that is reversed completely the other way.
I was in Chicago a couple of 3-4 weeks ago, and we saw these little kids on bikes with masks on the side of their head, like 5 or 6 of them. And the driver said, yeah, they're little yummies. I said, who? He said, little yummies. Look up, Google Lil Yummy. Lil Yummy was an 11-year-old murderer.
Wow.
And you look at his picture, you'll see the headshot of him, and he's like this. And he got murdered at 11 by a 14-year-old.
Wow.
Who's doing life now, and a 16-year-old.
That makes no sense.
You blame the system? Where was his father?
No one wants to talk about perception when it comes to racial profiling. No one wants to talk about stereotypes when it comes to racial profiling.
Blacks are convinced that the #1 issue facing the country right now is social justice, racist white cops, discrimination, systemic racism, microaggression, whatever new word they come up with, and it's a bunch of nonsense.
This is what I know. I'm a certified scuba diver. My first day of class, they told me this. When you're in shark-infested waters, everything in that water is considered a threat until proven otherwise. If it's a guppy, it could be a shark until you know it's a guppy. And I think as black men, we need to realize we're in shark-infested waters. And if we don't sit our young men down and we don't talk to them about perception, and we don't talk to them about stereotypes, we're doing them a huge disservice.
It starts in the house.
Okay, Anthony Mackie there. That seemed kind of
that last statement. I like that last statement.
I did too. I thought that is good. Perception, all white people are suspects. I don't care. As long as racism, white supremacy exists, all white people should be suspected of practicing racism. And that is something that every black person should be on board with. Other than that, I thought that kind of what Denzel was saying, absolutely blame the system. I think racist man, racist woman want us to blame each other, not the system and the conditions that we're under. They provide the weapons, the thoughts, the media, whatever. Where did those little kids learn how to behave like that? They learn from racist man and racist woman who are teaching them, actively teaching them, or who taught their parents. Point blank and simple. Anything else? Anything from the panel?
Yeah, I think one of the things is noticeable. It shows how the white supremacists keep us looking at each other, especially what Denzel's Washington statements make you look at, the black person other than the white people who are practicing racism and who control everything. And it just shows our deep confusion about who runs the world, how things are run. I also want to make a thing that I see this as the scoop. I guess they put this on it. The fact that they even have black celebrities share their views on race in America, that's also a confusing thing because racism is not just in America, it's the whole world, it's the whole thing. It's not race in America. It's racism everywhere and everything.
Racism is global.
Exactly. And so there's a lot of that in itself, the title is really confusing. So yeah.
Agreed. You'll never ever from America or concept America from white people. You'll never ever get somebody who studied the problem. They'll always get, celebrities, racially showcased victims to talk about race and racism, but never from the people who actually study it, who are actually working towards understanding it and dissolving it. They'll never put them up front. That's just how racist man, racist woman works.
That makes logical sense. I mean, why would they? They trying to dismantle the system. They trying to keep it going. They trying to get strength. So this only gives them more strength by putting them out there.
Exactly.
I think
So
Denzel Washington, I think that was an interesting question. That's something that I used to ask myself when another non-white person did something that was deemed so-called incorrect. But it was all just training and programming from racist man and racist woman, but I didn't see beyond that. And I used to ask, oh, where they father at? Where they daddy at? So that's a really interesting question. And I wish that he would dig deeper, and all of us non-white people would dig deeper and ask, okay, where is the daddy? Okay, he's locked up. Why was he locked up? Oh, because he couldn't find a job. He couldn't find employment. So he couldn't provide for his family. So he might have done something incorrect or criminal. But where did he get that thinking from? And why wasn't he able to find a job? Why didn't white people hire him? Oh, because that's what they want, right? So it's an endless cycle of this trauma and just going through this, and we just need to dig deeper. That's all I'm trying to say. We need to dig deeper.
agreed. There was a point that I wanted to make. Also, on top of that, with the racially showcased victims, they put them in front of us because they seem successful. Like, if you think like them, if you act like them, you too can be successful. Racist man, racist woman. That's the whole point of putting these people up in front of us. So if we kind of follow their beliefs, what they're talking about, what they're thinking, they're hoping, right? Racist man, racist women are hoping that we'll follow in their footsteps and want to be successful and be just like them. But most of us here have read the code book, and I hope many more will. I'm gonna go ahead and skip some of this video.
And something real quick, I would like for us to get out of entertainment. Stop being funny and joking. That's what they want. They want us to be jokey and funny and not take this serious, not take the problem, the system seriously, not take on racism, white supremacy, and think about it in a serious manner. They want us to always be joking and playing around.
Agreed.
Also, the suffrage movement for women.
At the same time, and you would say it as strong as anyone, it's no excuse for them bombing and destroying your own neighborhood. And burning down wherever it's happening. Burning down storefronts and stores that people
with mobs is how they get turned into that.
Yeah.
What's to be gained? You stop for one split second to think. Burning and looting doesn't help you in any way.
I understand y'all upset, but like it was already said, I doubt y'all half as upset as I am. So if I'm not over here wilding out, if I'm not over here blowing up stuff, if I'm not over here messing up my community, then what are y'all doing?
I will always continue to say that riots are socially destructive and self-defeating. I'm still convinced that non-violence is the most potent weapon available to oppress people in their struggle for freedom and justice. I feel that violence will only create more social problems than they will solve.
Let's switch it up, y'all. Let's switch it up. Do this peacefully, please. My brother moved here from Houston, And I used to talk to him on the phone. He loved it here. He started driving truck. He was good. So I highly doubt. No, I don't know. I know he would not want y'all to be doing this.
So I will continue to condemn riots and continue to say to my brothers and sisters that this is not the way. Continue to affirm that there is another way.
I also agree with not rioting. I also find it fascinating though that white people riot for, for than anything of win a football game and whatever, losing a football game, soccer game, whatever, and they you know, the system of racism. White people who practice racism, they don't give the same type of commentary on that compared to when Black people, you know, start doing the same thing for a more serious reason than white people doing it just because that's what they do. But I do agree that it is self-defeating, as Dr. King said. And it only causes more problems than it solves. I like what Mr. Fuller said this past Tuesday, where he talked about the old man in a wheelchair getting burnt up. You know, this is the things that can happen. You feel like, oh, I'm gonna destroy this white man's store, but not knowing that you're gonna harm another, non-white person in the process, which is incorrect. So yeah.
Yeah, agreed. I thought it was interesting what Dr. King was saying, her ancestor himself. He, ultimately was killed by white people. And it seems like this is where white people kind of get that idea of, race riots and whatnot. So it seems like they're using that message for their own racist benefit. Unfortunately, but I do agree. I don't think rioting is really helps anybody. Being codified helps people more than anything. Victims of racism, being codified and being on code will allow us to eliminate the system of racism, white supremacy. That's just a suggestion. That's just my opinion about it. Other than that,
we do not have Black neighborhoods. We do not own where we reside. Yeah, and if we could step away from that and separate the two, then maybe things will be better. Just a little bit on the surface of whatever. If we could just understand what we're saying when we say Black neighborhood. I had a neighbor, elderly woman, about 80 something. And she used to say, I live in my apartment. I don't live out here. I don't live. And I know it might not make sense, but like she saying that she does not own the building. She does not own outside. She didn't even own the apartment, right? But I get what she was saying. She was trying to communicate something. And we need to step away from this term Black neighborhood. We have Black locations where we are located, but we don't have Black neighborhoods. I don't know if anybody could help me expand on that. Yeah.
Totally agree. Black people, victims of racism, don't own anything. We are placed in certain areas. We're allowed, keyword allowed, to live in certain areas, in certain dwellings. When the racist man, racist woman have decided to move us, we have to move. We don't control any kind of property or neighborhood, like you said. Like he was saying, I think they mentioned they bombed his neighborhood, quote unquote neighborhood. If you had a neighborhood or a place, if you had power, you could prevent that, but you don't. So, Black people continue to be bombed. Victims of racism continue to be bombed helplessly, powerlessly, and all they can do is beg white people to stop it. We pretty much, don't have any power, don't own any kind of land, and racist man, racist woman continue to put Black celebrities, racially showcase them in front of us, and for us to believe that we can somehow beat racism if we're like them. Racism doesn't exist if we're like them. It's only a problem because we continue to talk about it. Essentially, they're saying we are failures because we believe racism exists. That's kind of the message I'm getting.
That's exactly the message I got. Kweku, I do have a question for you. And the reason why I'm asking this question is because there are other YouTubers out there. I'm not going to mention no names. But there are YouTubers out there who don't not only rather support and promote rioting and those type of activity, but they also use the term we got to get on code, or we got to be on code. So what would you define as being on code, or what would being on code mean to you? I guess I don't know.
Well, for me, being on code means reading Neely Fuller's work, understanding what racism is and how it works in all areas of people activity, understanding that there is a system of racism, white supremacy, and it is dominating people classified as not white, non-white, and all areas of people activity. So I tend to follow a lot of the suggestions in this book because I feel that they are logical and they make sense. And when put into practice, for me, they've worked. So that's what I mean by being on code. So if anybody would like to understand more about what it means to be on code, I'm specifically talking about Neely Fuller's code, the United Independent Compensatory Code System Concept, the revised expanded edition, compensatory counter-racist code, a textbook workbook for thought, speech, and/or action for victims of racism, white supremacy. I've classified myself as a victim of racism because I simply live in the system of racism, white supremacy. I didn't make it. I've been classified as that. So that's what I mean by being on code. I hope I didn't miss anything.
And being on code, and just to add to that, being on code meaning that every time I do something, it works. Every time. And I while I'm solving problems, I'm not creating any more for myself.
Yes. Exactly. Agreed.
So you're saying, Helen B, it's more of a individual thing than a group thing.
Correct. United independent. It's an individual thing. We could all do the same thing. We don't have to hover in a circle and put our heads down and come up with something. If we take the book, if we read the code, a book of suggestions, and expand on it or whatever. So it's all about solving our problems, solving the individual problem, and we solve the problem as a whole.
Agreed. Thank you. I'm gonna go ahead and read some stuff from the chat. Lime 22, good show thus far. Much appreciated. Still haven't solved racism. Still hoping to. Sherry Boykin just deleted her message. Ray L, the code is to be built on, not rested on. Completely agree. The code is a great foundation, but as victims of racism and as the system continues to refine itself, it needs to be updated. But a great foundation to start with. Very comprehensive work from Neely Fuller. Thank you very much to him. Gonna go ahead and play the next clip. Anything from the panel? A quick advertisement, PSA. So the Cows, one great podcast for victims of racism. Cows mean in the context of white supremacy, hosted by Dusty Renegade. You can frequently listen to it on Black Talk Radio Network. That's the primary place I would say people should go to listen to it. I'm pretty sure it can be found on many other podcasting platforms as well. But great talk show if you want to learn how to question white people about racism. White people know everything. White people know what racism is and how it works. They just pretend that they don't. If you want to learn how to question them and get a better understanding. Tune into the cows. This could be great for people who don't like to read as much. But like I said, reading is more important than watching TV. If you don't like reading as much, check out some of his shows.
White people can show you better than we could tell you. And the cows is an excellent example of that. If you want to learn more about racism, white supremacy, and how it works.
I wanted to add something to when we're talking about the code. I just slipped, but again, when it comes to when we say like get on code, the code obviously when we talk about it, we're referring to the code book by Neely Fuller. But also one of the things that Neely Fuller always mentions is the code is what logically works. So if you find something, say something happens and you respond a certain way, or you do something, you're like, oh, this works. That could be your code. Because I know someone mentioned already that the code is different for each person. That's why it's called United Independent. So if everyone is just trying to see what works to end racism. So just remember, like when you're thinking about your personal code and the code that just works, it's not going to be the same for everyone. Oh, one last thing. But some of the things that do work, if you are curious, I would definitely go back and read the code book and try some of those first before you start creating your own. Because again, as I mentioned, it is a great foundation to start with.
All answers are revealed with questions and answers. You must ask a lot of questions. I don't care how annoying it might sound or whatever. That's the only way you're going to learn anything, by asking questions. Just a suggestion.
Thank you. My next advertisement, I guess you could say, is for the ISIS papers by our great grandsister, Dr. Frances Cress Welsing, developed the crest theory of color confrontation. She came up with the theory: white people are motivated to practice racism, white supremacy against non-white people due to their fear of genetic annihilation. If you would like to learn more about what that is, what that means, what kind of work that she's been doing, she's contributed a lot to counter racism and our understanding of racism, white supremacy, at least for myself. Go ahead and purchase her book, The ISIS Papers. She's also on the Cows broadcast. She's got a couple of episodes on there as well. So would highly recommend listening to her. And we also have a book study here on our channel on CRWS. Go ahead and check it out in our archives. Okay. Next clip. So this one, very popular clip. I hope it doesn't get taken down or flagged or anything, but very popular. I know a lot of victims heard Kanye on Drink Champs. Let's find out if he's on code or if he knows the code.
And we are simply programmed, and we go with the program, and some are unprogrammed, and some of the unprogrammed are people who they say are crazy, or people who go off the rails, people who end up homeless, and the program are the people who go with the program. It's like when they say, this is the man on the moon, this is the first black man on the moon. I just telling people, like investors, people we having SPAC, oh, I was with the black. A white person, first of all, we all beings alike. We're not even classified under race. But if we're gonna be inside of race conversation, don't be telling me what you done did for the black people. I started the black SPAC, or this black investments for hair clippers, and what you think I might be into. I remember being out in San Francisco. Bro, It's like, I ain't never made money with not one person from Silicon Valley. Have you ever saw the show Silicon Valley?
Yeah, yes, it's a great show.
Like the opening episode was Kid Rock performing, and he said, I'm Kid Rock. And then nobody clapped at the end of his performance, and one dude says, see, that's Kid Rock? He the brokest person here. That best describes my experience in Silicon Valley, whether I'm sitting with Google, whether I'm sitting with Mark Zuckerberg, whether I'm sitting, man, I already been shadow banned. They shadow banned me in the middle of the election, so.
Okay, so I think first, Kanye started off pretty, I kind of was seeing what he's saying. Under a system of racism, white supremacy, I understand that a lot of victims, I'm just gonna talk about myself, but I'm insane. In order to live, operate, function under the system, you've got to be insane. So I think Kanye was, he was definitely saying something when he was talking about the programming. I've been conditioned to act, to be inferior. I've been conditioned to waste time. I've been conditioned to be non-constructive, etc. And also the talking about Silicon Valley, Kanye is supposed to be a so-called billionaire, and the white people, there's tons of white people in Silicon Valley. The people who are actually creating a lot of the things that we use, they have the real money, the real money, the real power. I think Kanye is admitting that he doesn't have any of that. Anything from the panel?
I definitely agree with him when it comes to programming. I wish he would have went a little bit further with that. I think that he was on code when he said programming, because we are programmed and trained. How? By watching movies and, being non-constructive, watching movies, TV shows, advertisement, etc. So much is pushed in our face to do this, do that, to do a bunch of stuff that's non-constructive. And that's what racist man and racist woman want us to do. So I definitely agree with him on that. And he was on code when he was talking about the programming.
As far as when you talk about programming, it starts with the words. That's where it all starts with, because the word is going to produce ideas that's going to affect the way you think, speak, and act. And so it all starts with the words. There's another point I wanted to make. One of the things I've noticed too is because he kind of mentioned at the end is like, if you go along with the programming, then you're programmed. And it's this thing that we've been programmed as victims as not, you don't, which is it's understood. Who wants to be at the bottom? Who wants to be looked at, or look at yourself as being at the bottom, or being looked at as nothing? And who wants to be victims? Nobody want to be victims. But that's the reality of it all. We are victims. We are prisoners of war. And it's really difficult for many of us, most of us, to grasp that understanding. And I think that in itself strengthens racism, white supremacy, that we don't want to accept the reality that we're in. We that's why we keep using, black men and black women and all these terms and words to try to obfuscate what's really going on, who's really the man and who's really the woman. And that, that's just one of our downfalls. One of the things we have to get, as victims, have to accept to be able to move forward. I remember one time when I was probably me being off code, talking about racism at the workplace. This when I'm still learning. That's all I can say on that. But when I was working at TCI, I was telling them, I'm not TCI, I meant to say TJ Maxx. Another victim told me, he said, I hate when you use the word victim, man. It bothers me. Like, why is it bothering you? I'm calling myself a victim. I didn't call you a victim, I'm calling me. And the fact that I call myself a victim bothered him. And it just that program is really serious. That's really what I have to say on that.
Something I want to add to what Jola spoke of a little bit earlier about words and the words that we use, and how Neely Fuller says, which is excellent, words are tools. Yes. Yeah, words are tools.
Agreed. Well said. Well said. Like Jola mentioned, the programming is deep. Gonna go ahead and continue.
What I got to lose? I don't use Twitter anymore. I'm friends with Jax Dorsey. I get I said, man, why y'all shadow ban me? He hit me back and said, I don't see anything weird here. Cause you now look, you gave me a I didn't inhale ass answer to why.
Real quick, that for me would be practicing racism. Lying, lying to a non-white person, a white person lying to a non-white person, practicing racism.
I got shadow banned after I went to Haiti.
I don't even know what shadow ban means. I'm sorry.
Man,
I'm
it just
saying,
means like,
they don't see your stuff.
They don't see your stuff.
You don't notice it,
Like,
but they
okay,
don't see it.
load up. If you go right now and load up Emmanuel album by Sunday Service on Apple, if you don't type it all the way to the very end, it ain't gonna pop up.
Yeah.
It's little things inside of.
But let's be clear. You was a little crazy on Twitter at one point. Remember? You was kind of.
Yeah, but does that get a right for them to shadow ban?
It's freedom of speech, though,
I
too.
don't
You're
even
taking
know
that
what shadow
away.
ban means. Who was it that you said you wanted to work with, the baby, and you couldn't work with him?
Oh yeah. It's like people in my camp was trying to protect me from working with the baby. It's so funny. I had
The baby or little baby? I forgot which one was it.
Well, you know, it was really hard for me to get in contact with both of them. In all actuality, I had to tweet to
But
really.
you had a red hat on at the time, though.
No, this is after I had a red hat, but I still got a red hat on today. I'll let y'all know that. I might not got it on, but I'll let y'all know where I stand. No, man, look, they let that, man, I know this man mama, bro. You know what I'm saying? I've changed this man's family, and both John Legend and Big Sean, when I ran for office, got used quick by the Democrats to come at they boy that actually changed their life. And that's some sellout shit. And I don't rock with neither of them. And I need my apologies. I ain't saying they gonna change, but niggas is scared. I feel you. They, you know what I'm saying? Everybody ain't got 100 talents. They got them under pressure.
So real quick, so I guess addressing the John Legend, Big Sean thing. Under a system of racism, white supremacy, I think it's to be expected of other victims to turn on you, to do things that are in their own so-called self-interest. That should be expected. He mentioned, that they're afraid, and you should know if when people are afraid, they will do anything. Racist man, racist woman, using other victims against a victim. We see it time and time again. We know that this is the kind of tactic, the racial showcasing confusion that racist man, racist woman will continue to use. We just gotta know when it's happening. We gotta understand that this is what racist man, racist woman. What do they want me to know? What are they trying to get me to understand? What are they trying to get me to buy into? And 9 times out of 10, it is not for your benefit. 10 times out of 10, I should say, not for your benefit. And then I guess the red hat as well. Another thing that Kanye was, I guess, heavily victimized for, apart from being a Black person, for wearing a red hat. For me, Kanye wearing a red hat that does absolutely nothing for me. Doesn't do anything to solve racism, white supremacy. There's nothing that goes against the system. But because he's being racially showcased, he has some so-called false power. People think that he has influence. It affects them, but it does absolutely nothing for the system. I could care less if Kanye puts on a purple hat, red hat, a yellow hat. It means nothing. Black people, non-white people need to stop being triggered by certain symbols. We shouldn't. It does nothing for us.
Racist man and racist woman, they want us to focus on each other and not on them. That's why they place these people in front of us, these other non-white people. These are the fellow victims in front of us.
Agreed. I'll go ahead and keep playing it.
Sean and John, you know, Pusha voted Democrat, voted for Kamala. We ain't seen her since the election either. And I ain't seen you saw Whole Foods. I ain't seen it since the election. They got 94% of the black female vote. You would have thought Drake was running. Pusha didn't come out and outright diss me to the public.
Right.
You get what I'm saying? Because at the end of the day, he like, man, I'm not gonna do that. Like, I didn't diss Virgil when he took the Louis thing, you know what I'm saying? Right. These people came out, and then John Legend, he sounds so white. He was like, the rapper. It's just like, man, it's like, where is God in this conversation? You know what I'm saying? Who do you work for? Because if you don't work for God, then you're working for the devil. So who you working for at this point? I'm a man of God. God got me covered. And as long as I'm alive, God's not finished. I'm saying names because I don't like subliminals. I don't like subs, bait, 808s. I don't like nothing where I can't see. It's like, just be straightforward. Right. Whatever it is, I honor that. I respect that. You know what I'm saying? I gotta, hey, this is how I feel. This is how you feel, and let's talk on that way. Let's not talk through no managers. Let's not talk through no assistants, no bodyguards, nobody using you.
You hit me direct.
Yeah, right?
Hit me direct.
You said, who you talk to?
I was like, who? He said, formerly known as Kanye. I said, this guy here. He still didn't believe it.
Any thoughts from the panel on that one?
I think he's on code with that. Just the whole, just be straightforward, just be direct. I agree with him 1,000% on that. And something else that he mentions in his interview, I don't know if it's going to come up or if it's already passed, but how he has everybody in a group chat. So there's no talking, there's no gossiping or whatever. I'm talking, I have a problem with you, I'm contacting you directly. And that solves problems. It's not, you're hearing something third person, this, that, and the other. So yes, I like this. No gossiping, just, direct, straight to it. Yeah, he's on code with this part to me.
Agreed. Oftentimes when talking about racism, white supremacy, the racist man, racist woman use a ton of words to try and confuse you about racism. Never get.
I'm in it now.
It's important to get straight to the point in as few words as possible. You need to understand what is being said. Please do not confuse us anymore. Do not confuse me anymore. Anything else from the panel?
And that's also how I like racist man and racist woman, when they're upfront and direct with their racism. Don't beat around the bush. Don't be refined. Don't use so-called PC terms. Be direct. I like that. I know what I'm dealing with like that. I don't know what I'm dealing with if you're, well, I do know, but when you hide and, try to act friendly, this, that, and the other, when you really think of me, or, you're being deceptive or whatever, I don't know. I don't like that. I like it when you're direct.
Agreed. And go to the chat, the live chat. It seems Kamaria has joined us. Greetings, Kamaria. Said, interested gold in his teeth. Interesting gold in his teeth. ISIS paper talks about the significance of gold and white supremacy. It says confusion bomb. Yep. Get your copy of the ISIS papers. Gold is a significant symbol in the system of racism, white supremacy. And he's got gold in his teeth. Learn it, get your copy, learn about gold. Also, I'm not going to spend too much time on that comment, but he mentioned being a man of God. I would want to ask him what exactly he means by that, because there have been a lot of people who say they are so-called men of God, but do not do what is required of them. So I would ask him about that. Never argue with anybody in area 7, religion. Never argue with anybody about that. Just ask questions. How are you supposed to relate? How do you relate with me? How are you supposed to treat me?
Never argue with anyone, period. What are we arguing about?
Exactly.
I don't debate, don't argue. Talk, discuss. And if you don't understand, ask questions.
Agreed. Anything else from the panel? Go ahead and keep playing it. All right.
Because it ain't nothing, it's nothing I said in this interview that's not what I would say in this interview.
In real life.
Yeah, not that I wouldn't feel. And I think it's interesting that it comes off as shocking in any way. Because I'm not really saying nothing shocking. It's like, John Legend gonna always show up and just do whatever them folks tell him to do, man. It's a...
The COVID-19 vaccines are ready, and so is Walgreens, with pharmacists who know you. So when you're ready, they'll be ready to give it to you safely for free. This is our shot at bringing our communities back together, providing healing, not just for some, but for all. This is our shot. This is our shot. This is our shot at reconnecting with the ones we love, with the world we've lost. This is our shot.
That's not a shocking thing, man. Man, how about we start owning some stock or some...
Okay, that was unexpected. I didn't know that was going to be part of it, but he said something. A lot of victims powerless. Got to do what you're told by racist man, racist woman. Can't fault anybody for that. But Kanye also did mention something that was important. I think it's important to stand by your work, whatever you do, whatever you say, to be able. If you can say it in private, you should be able to say it in public. Stand by your work.
Land, what we own? Braids.
Right.
You can't have braids. What we own? The N-word?
Right.
You can't say nigga.
Right.
But you can't buy your house. Y'all thought I wasn't gonna get killed by the end of this interview. I'm doing everything I can, bro. No, we can't. No more black kids. This is here to remind you of who they want us to be and not who we really are, bro. Mm-hmm. And when I say they, who there's overlapping they.
Niggas at the college we talk about. They don't want you to eat up a sandwich.
Yeah, because they don't love you. They will put up with you, but they do not love us in that way, and they are afraid of what is inevitable. You know what I'm saying? God used people like this, that I could come right here and let y'all know y'all entrapped and ain't made it nowhere.
Right.
Y'all aiming at the wrong people. What y'all collaborating, listen, come get me. What y'all gonna do? Y'all me to me? Y'all come up with some type of scam? Y'all gonna come up with something and try to take me? No, God had me for a reason, because if I was at Nike, you think I have been able to wear a red hat? You think I've been able to have an opinion? You think I've been able to show you we can have an opinion? That's all you needed to see. We are not immune from who we influenced by. Right here, I'm here to light it up, then I'm gone. But after an interview like this, I did my job. But if I hadn't come to you and said this and kept it to myself, then God couldn't have used me. You know what I'm saying? I only fear God, as I said, and I'm not always obedient. It's a lot going on. It's a lot going on out here. You know what I'm saying? I fall short. They say Moses killed the man and all the, before God called on him. Man, our freedom is, first of all, let's do everything we can to keep our children. There's a foundation that has been started. I actually bumped into the gentleman whose dad started a foundation in Israel that gives money to women who are thinking about not having a baby. And that's the exact time that I'm on. That's what we on. That's what we on. We on God time now. Somehow I made it this far, man. You know, to be able to give y'all this information.
Beautiful. Thank you, by the way.
Yeah, praise God, bro. And that's
Any thoughts? Any thoughts from the panel?
What does he mean when he say God? He kept saying the term they. They who? Is you talking about white people or non-white people? Entrapped. I agree. When it comes to religion. And yeah, definitely entrapped. Oh, wow.
Yeah, I was kind of getting a little like ISIS papers vibes when he's saying they were denying the inevitable, but that was a great point, Helen. Who does he mean when he's saying they? You know, he's talking about how he's somewhat free, but he can't mention who these people are, who they are. I think that would be hugely beneficial information for non-white people, for victims.
I suspect that when he says they, I suspect you're talking about white people, but I don't know.
Agreed.
I also agree. I see a lot of, I think us as victims, it just shows the power of racism that we're so fearful about, even mention their names. Everything is they. When you hear Black people talk, non-white people, particularly Black people talk, it's always they doing this and they that and they this. But nobody ever want to say who the they is. And it's like almost a fear if you say white people practice racism. And it's part of it also because we don't want to ourselves, and this is something I've noticed from listening to other Black people talk. We don't want to indict all white people who are able to practice racism, and because we also have been taught that racism or white supremacy is only some groups who openly practice racism, like calling people niggers and stuff like that. That's our mindset of what racism is, and so we don't want to indict all white people in that same type of category. So it's a combination of confusion, I'll say. Yes.
I agree. This is Ash. I think that what Helen said was a really, really, really great point. And I agree that as somebody who's saying that he's so-called free, he still seems to be very scared to say the exact names of the people who may potentially kill him, which is what he's saying, is that he could get killed for this. You would think that he would want people to know who these people are, so that if that does happen, we know exactly who did it. I also thought it was interesting in the beginning of this clip, he said something about Black people, like he was talking about John Legend and how John Legend is being used by white people, and how he should be helping Black people buy houses and land and stocks. I just think that's really interesting because I'm pretty sure at some point it said that Kanye West was like a billionaire. If that's true or not, that can be debated, but I do think it's interesting because even with all of this money that he so-called has, he doesn't even consider the option of using that to buy land for Black people, because I think he knows that he can say all this stuff on this show, but if he actually probably did these things, he would probably die. So he doesn't do them. He just talks about what isn't being done, even though he could possibly do it. I also think it's interesting that, attempt to do it. I also think it's interesting that he used an idea from an Israeli person. Israel is a white supremacist state. Is when someone says Israeli, that literally just means white people who have moved to the Middle East and stolen people's land. So I think it's really interesting that he's trying to use their idea, because that is a white supremacist state, and that Israeli man is just trying to get more Israeli people to have children so they can overpopulate that area, further taking over the land. So I really think it just shows the amount of confusion that this person Kanye West is under, because he does not see that this plot that he wants to somehow use for Black people is actually being used to further white supremacy. I think that was it. Did you want? Oh, okay. Yeah, that's it for now.
Wonderful. Completely agree. Once again, racist man, racist woman have propped up this victim, racially showcased them to us as somebody being successful, somebody who has so-called beaten racism, white supremacy. But clearly there's confusion still there.
I would like to add I'm sorry. You finish your thought?
Yeah, go ahead.
So I like to add what she was saying about the white people will like what I use. I don't ever use the term Jews when it comes to white people who claim to be Jews. That's how I usually say it. And that confusion right there has really damaged a lot of Black people understanding what racism is and how it works, because we see these white people who claim to be Jews and we call them Jews, and in our minds how it's been conditioned that these people are mistreated people too. And today I had to work today, and I'm downtown. Anybody know anything about downtown Brooklyn, or in certain parts of Brooklyn, some parts of New York, particularly in Brooklyn, there's a lot of white people who claim to be Jews. They call themselves Hasidic Jews, people with the curly things on the side of their head or whatever, curly hair on the side of their head. And one of the things we never think about as Black people, they got the whole sloughs of areas or just them. And people don't really think about, could they have all this if they was Black? The Black areas some of the areas that they live in were Black, so-called Black areas. Now they control a lot of those areas and taking more and more property from where Black people used to reside, or probably not the correct word, but inhabit would be a better word. So yeah, we don't look at it as
Reside is the correct word.
Okay. Yeah, so these people are, they're white people. And we need to understand that and look at it as that, not call them Jews, but they're white people who claim to be Jews, because you can only have one religion, as Mr. Fuller says, and that religion will be, if you're a white person, and that religion will be racism, white supremacy. Yeah, that's it.
Thank you.
I'm telling you, I know it's also kind of funny when I'm talking about John and Big Sean, and you know what it is? It'd be so funny. It's like people, it hurt us, people who love me. Like Charlemagne loved me, but he had to, put Biden on the thing. And think about this happened when Biden, remember he said, Charlemagne, if you didn't vote for me, then you're not Black. Well, that showed you how comfortable he was and how much they talked before that. And you know what must have happened afterwards? They got in the room like, y'all niggas done fucked up. I ain't supposed to be showing that y'all like that. That y'all like that. That y'all like that, John Legend, Sean. This is some 1984, bro. This is mind control. This population control. Rise up, man. Look inside of you, man. Until we at the level of Arno, we're gonna be clapping for just getting a job for Arno. Until we to the level, you know what I'm saying? When LeBron wins the championship, he looks at this white lady that owns the team and says, I told you I was gonna win for you. That's the part I don't like. That's the part, because if you king, then let's be kings. That's the part we starting up our own league. And I'm here battling for us, for our freedom, to be able to build our communities and not be in a position where we have to kill half of ourselves every year.
Okay, that's enough of that.
Lots of confusion and victim of racism. Kanye West. I don't know if it was mentioned already, but this concept of love, I kept hearing him say love, and then mention various victims of racism having to do things that Kanye West felt slighted him. And a system of racism, white supremacy, love cannot exist. Love equals justice, guaranteeing no one is allowed to be mistreated, and those who need help receive constructive help. That's not happening on planet Earth. So love does not exist, and this word has been used to confuse and sabotage so many Black people. You have a Black person amongst people who think they love him, and next thing you know, he needs help. He's not getting the help he needs, but the people who love them are still there. Love is a really, really deceptive word. It has been used to deceive people classified as Black for as long as this race war has been started by white people, I suspect. We should really pay attention to that word and try to avoid it, or have a codified definition of it. Another tragic thing about this interview is that there's like amongst the confusion, there are like droplets of truth, like population tailoring is significant. It does take place within the system of race and white supremacy. Black people are mistreated globally around the planet, as Kanye West mentions. But when you don't have a understanding of racism and white supremacy, what it is and how it works, everything you believe, you think you believe, your faith, all of that is probably riddled with confusion, because racism and white supremacy is you need to know what that is and how it works if you are really going to have context for what one is seeing, experiencing, and trying to analyze. You cannot one should not get up on the mic and say that they know what they're talking about without understanding the total system of racism and white supremacy that we are dominated in. Really, really tragic. I mean my line.
Well said. Excuse me. Well said. Well said. One thing I noticed a lot, Kanye, seemed to be pointing the finger at other people, and I think that's exactly what racist men, racist women want. They want us, like Helen mentioned earlier in the broadcast, they want us to be focused on one another. They want us to be focused on one another. So rather than focusing on, throughout that interview, a number of times, Kanye so-called name dropped a ton of white people. Why aren't those white people providing constructive help? They have millions, billions of dollars. But instead, you're focused on victims who don't have nearly as much money or nearly as much resources. Why isn't Jack Dorsey giving money to victims? Why isn't what's that guy's name from Tesla? The guy from Tesla, Elon Musk. Why isn't he giving tons of money to Black people? I think maybe it's that he has
Elon Musk.
Say that again? Oh, thank you. I think he has an understanding that they're not supposed to be helping Black people. And I think under a system of racism, white supremacy, that's incorrect. Well, white people owe Black people owe them so much money and compensation for the things that they've done. I don't think any of those two white males would have the businesses, the empires that they have if it wasn't built off of mistreating Black people. So avoid name calling, Don't point the finger at other victims. Blame racist man, racist woman for the conditions that they continuously put us under and dominate us under. Any other thoughts? All right.
I was going to say that I agree with what you said. I think that's such a great point, and I think that it's really just a refinement of white supremacy because he is now on this platform. When is there a white person next to him? Am I wrong in saying that in that room there's one other Black person and then there's another white person?
It's his classification is confusing to me, but I suspect he's white. I think he's like Arab or something, but probably white.
Okay, yeah, and he's in this, talking about other Black people in this really degrading manner, but yet also bigging up almost like he wants to ascend to where these white people are. And it's really unfortunate, and it just shows you maybe how brain trash and warped his mind is, because he thinks that he is espousing all these ideas of freedom or that he's free, but he's really just a part of the stage of refinement of white supremacy, because he's using these ideas of freedom and Christianity to talk about other Black people in a degrading way. And 05 wanted to say something.
Yeah, victim of racism, Kanye West mentioned mind control, which is another tragic aspect of racism and white supremacy, because mind control is very, very real currently, but he fails to understand that he himself is under a significant, severe degree of mind control with the whole promoting of white concepts in the form of just Jesus Christ and in Christianity and this religion doctrination that has been given to us by racist men and racist women. He promotes this as if it's going to constructively help Black people to solve the race problem, or not even that, if it's going to help Black people, period. And we've had these concepts for a very long time, and our condition has not improved. So really, really tragic. And I see a lot of show-offism, which is another thing that we need to pay attention to and attempt to stop. Well, we see that with I think someone mentioned the gold teeth. I think Kamaria mentioned the gold teeth, and the leather jacket and the glasses, just the whole look. And it reminds me of myself when I was more confused. I own a pair of grills, simply just, I thought they were cool and I wanted to show them off to people. So we really got to get out of that. Kanye West, in my confusion, was someone I thought was some sort of role model. But as I understand the system, racism, white supremacy, there is no such thing as any Black role models. We're all victims of racism, and we all need help, myself included, Kanye West included. And I think it would be constructive, if it hasn't been played already, to play the video with victim of racism Kanye West in the car, talking about his issues with white supremacist Kim Kardashian, about how they get about just their issues and how that victimization is evident there as well, with that arrangement with him and white supremacist Kim Kardashian.
I don't have that video queued up. I haven't seen that either. But let me go to the chat. So Lime 22, a free quote unquote person does not do an interview in oversized sunglasses, extra large Black leather jacket, and Black gloves on. All I see is a victim of racism, white supremacy, Kanye living in fear, BGQ. You are entitled to that, Lime 22, BGQ, definitely. I would agree. As long as the system of racism, white supremacy exists, I don't believe any victim or Black or anybody classified as Black can be so-called free. All right, moving along to the next video. But the whole Kanye and Kim stuff, that could be a whole separate broadcast, because that definitely shows how Kanye is a victim, powerless victim, and why you shouldn't be in a tragic arrangement, for sure. Next one. So I had this video queued up. I'm thinking this was I might save this one for a different broadcast. I'm running out of time here. But I'm thinking that this one could be, for a separate broadcast. Might have to go with Helen BEE on that one. Helen, how you feeling right now? You can play this one here.
Sure. Yeah, we could do it.
All right, so as you can see, room full of victims, even though somebody here might not think they're a victim. This stuff is, I classify these people as Black entertainers being racially showcased. Just gonna play a small snippet of it. This has been doing the runs on social media and whatnot. Could be constructive to talk about it, could not be. That's ultimately for you to decide.
Fresh, great idea was don't tell Myra until today. So we walk in, you first see Brittany Renner, and we're thinking you're probably gonna be like, okay, shit, we're gonna have this great debate. But you said initially, you're like, I don't think there's much to really debate. Why?
Well, I mean, here's the thing. We've always said it, men and women, we're very different. We have opposing goals. Girls are trying to, get resources, time, attention out of guys. Guys are trying to get sex. And girls, a lot of the time, are trying to get what they need to get out of dudes without necessarily giving it up. And some girls are good at it, some girls aren't. And then there's other girls that are kind of models for that are good at finessing dudes. And not to say that you're a finesser, I ain't saying that, but girls are able to, run laps around a lot of guys. And that's why our podcast exists, to help dudes out to understand how women operate and how they move.
Now, you have a different point of view.
Wait. Where do you think she fits in that? Because, I think her point of view would be diametrically opposed to you guys by saying, well, I'm not the exact typical person who you may think dudes are running into or you're trying to tell people to stay away from.
I mean, well, sure, she could tell. She was saying that we're wrong, I guess, about that.
Well,
so you tell us a little bit about yourself. Then.
No, I think you know more about me than I do myself. So you're saying
no,
obviously you do though, because you said that you warn guys about girls like me. So tell me about girls like me.
Just
Humor
women
me.
in general.
Don't women in general, because you literally.
Sorry, everyone, technical difficulties. Let me bring the video back up. Okay, sorry about that.
No worries.
No, obviously you do though, because you said that you warn guys about girls like me. So tell me about girls like me.
Just
Humor
women
me.
in general.
Don't women in general, because you literally specifically said before we got on here
This was an off-camera
that
conversation.
you did say that
That's true.
you warn guys about girls like me. So now that we're face to face, what kind of girl am I?
You're not special. You're like other girls. That's the key.
I'm not special.
You're like other women that are
So what makes you special then?
I never said I was. But you're trying to say, well, what makes me different from, a lot of women operate the way you do.
And how do I operate?
In general, what I just said before, women, it's a dance between the two genders. Men are trying to get sex. Women are trying to get resources, time, attention, whatever it is that they're looking for. And a lot of girls play the game better than guys. We talk about this openly on our podcast. And we're teaching guys how to not necessarily get finesse and get what they want out of girls, which a lot of the times is intimacy, but they're not able to get it. But girls are easily able to obtain money, time, resource, attention, whatever it is. Girls are running laps around dudes, which is why podcasts like ours exist.
Do you believe that Brittany has been effective in extracting, as you say, time, resources, and other things out of dudes?
Yeah, to a degree, sure. Yeah. I mean, like, a lot of girls want to do. I mean, well, here's the thing. You've been so adamant about me being incorrect, and I don't know, and you don't know me. And all
Really
this other stuff.
grotesque.
Tell me then. Maybe we're off. Who knows?
Well, I think, first of all, let's bring it back a couple notches. Okay. So there's really a lot to unpack here, because my first question to you is, what do you gain from telling girls that they're not special? How does that make you feel? I mean, I know everything is a joke, but I'm asking you a real question. So how does that make you feel? Because if I say you're a bitch ass nigga, that does something for me, right? If I insult you, or if I tell you you're not special, you're forgettable, what does that do for me? No, but that doesn't. But that's what I'm saying. No, but I'm saying, what if I call you? If I just say that again, you're forgettable. That's why I didn't want to do you guys' podcast. Forgettable. Hate the setup. The name is underwhelming. I didn't really see the value in it. Right? That's how I feel. Right. But so that's fine. But for me, that's okay if it wasn't a fit for me. But I also don't need to.
Serious about silly things.
Serious about silly things, nonsense. I had to say it again because Wow. I'm just gonna say non-white people focusing on each other, focusing on conflict with each other, pretending like they're not victims, pretending like they are anything more than victims is quite pitiful. And I don't know if any of what they said falls under VGQ, but it's just if this is what non-white people are doing with their time and energy, this is the content we are consuming, and point to our behavior, what we're doing, what we're concerned with, and it all makes sense tragically, and we really need to stop, just codify our thought, speech, and behavior. And if we're doing that, the only reason we would be watching something like this is to critique it in this manner. Other than that, this is garbage.
I totally agree. Total waste of time and energy. All these victims, particularly the two males there, other than and probably I would say DJ Academics as well. I'll probably get, actually I could just say all three of them, all four of them rather. None of them have a understanding what racism is and how it works. Neither of them consider themselves to be victims or prisoners of war. And that is in itself is the problem right there. And so this is what you're gonna have. And I'm sure they are, making something out of this as far as, some type of monetary gain this, because victims are confused about what racism is and how it works, and we have no concern about dealing with that number one problem. We don't even consider it being a problem. A lot of us, particularly those two sitting there in the black, it's just a waste of time. I wanted to say more, but my brain just got stuck for a second. But yeah.
I'm just going to keep it short and simple. Starve for attention. Attention. That's all this is about. And so-called gender war, to keep that going. Instead of focusing on a racist man or racist woman, starve for attention.
Yeah, I know. Because I'm glad you said starve for attention, because that's what it is. And so what happens? Other victims are going to gravitate to this. A lot of people, it's probably, like you said, it probably already went viral. And so people's watching this, and victims are watching this and just soaking it all up, because this is the focus. This is what we've been, trained to focus on each other. So-called gender war.
I was just thinking, imagine if they codified this and started talking about ways to dismantle the system instead of, I don't even know what they're talking about, honestly, at this point. It was just all over the place, but not serious. I think on a serious note, they should change it You know, I think it would be very beneficial because a lot of people do watch this show. And as someone said before, like this was really surfing the internet pretty fast. Like it got a lot of views. So just imagine if the conversation was different. If I don't know if it would surface the internet as fast as it did if the conversation was different, but I think it's worth a try. And especially not talking about silly things like, are you special? Like under a system, I don't understand what makes you a victim or what makes you a special, like a special victim. Who got special victim privileges? Not you. So it's interesting.
I strongly doubt it wouldn't go nowhere if they were talking something constructive, talking about dismantling the system. It would, it'll get as many views as we getting right now.
Kamaria said something.
Just to add really quick, I think too, it definitely won't get as many views, but maybe. I think if they honestly switch the script, because they already have a lot of views, but just say they switch the script right now at what the viewers have, I'm sure someone will watch like the first 1 or 2 videos and then they'll probably fall off after that. But even just the setup is different. I think people like things that quote unquote would entertain them. So even something like, I think of the ISIS paper, male and female relationships. That would be a great conversation to talk about in this setting if they wanted to be codified and constructive about the conversation that they're having, like specific topics.
Kamaria mentioned something in the chat about them having a degraded view of each other, and I see that, and I like to say that they add and suspect that they have a degraded view of themselves, all of them, which is why they're seeking attention in this manner. And I would say the Black female, she it's very evident that she sees she has a very degraded, incorrect view of herself, because she has gone to great lengths to change her appearance. She seems to have applied makeup to make her skin look brighter. She's wearing a wig that is probably sewn into her scalp. So it's just really really tragic that we have been just conditioned by white people to just think in such a just depraved manner, I'm gonna call it. And yeah, I don't know if these victims of racism right here have any interest in solving the race problem, discussing racism constructively at all, because this is getting them all the attention that they need. You know, Anelia Fuller says, you know, Black people, non-white people love attention, and if we're doing something, it's probably for attention. Tragically.
Agreed. I just want to point out, racist man, racist woman, once again, promoting these so-called gender wars. This type of content is in abundance on YouTube, wherever you want. We have numerous videos of Black males, Black females arguing with one another about what a so-called high value male is, high value female, whatever that is under a system of racism, white supremacy, not showing each other courtesy, being wholly disrespectful to one another. And that stuff makes rounds on social media. That stuff is promoted by racist man, racist woman. Like Nana was saying, you know, this show, can you imagine, right? We all know that's not gonna happen. But can you imagine if they were talking about something serious, about the race problem? Probably wouldn't get as many views. That's probably why this stuff is still being promoted, why this stuff is on the internet, because they're talking about stuff like this. You know, Black people, non-white people, victims of racism, we won't find a lot of content where they're talking about serious things like the race problem. You know, that like was mentioned, the ISIS papers, the Black male, Black female relationship is a false problem. I don't think any of these people, these content creators, whatever you want to call them, victims of racism, have read that chapter or even know about it. But you know, the way they talk about one another, They don't talk about racism, the effects it has on one another. Doesn't talk about any of that. And what's even more is that these two Black males, I'm pretty sure, almost 99% positive, they don't date Black females. They don't like Black females. So every time they're talking about degrading the women they degrade, they're talking about Black females, unfortunately. That's just how it is. This kind of content's in abundance, very tragic. I'm gonna go ahead and read from the chat. Kamaria said, ISIS Papers has a chapter on the relationship between Black males and females, and if it is a false problem. Agreed, get your copy of the ISIS Papers. If you really want to learn something about these so-called gender wars, really find out what the actual problem is. Leave you a lot of confusion. Very sad the way this male perceives females without understanding the system. A lot of males get on here and talk about females like this. It's very tragic. And just the way he was generalizing how Black males think. He said males, but every time I decode that as Black males, that all we think about is sex, or all we want is sex. I just they have a degraded view of the other gender. I agree. They don't respect each other at all, or show each other courtesy. Randy said, well, it's their time to waste. Absolutely. This is their time to waste. They can do whatever they want with it. The sad part is many victims will waste a lot of time on this too as well, believing this kind of falsehood, focusing on these silly issues rather than focusing on the race problem. Victims of racism don't have any time to waste. I just wish they knew the same. These gender wars have really confused this generation. Absolutely.
My definition. Oh, go ahead, Kweku.
I'll just read the last one. Lime 22 said, if Brittany Renner was dark skinned, the male panel would have cussed her out and then thrown her out. Oh, DGQ. Yeah, they've done that to a number of Black females, but I know I don't watch these guys enough. But I have seen clips or some stuff like that. But yeah, go ahead, Helen.
My definition of respect, not lying to myself, and that's something that I learned while learning about racism, white supremacy, and how it works. And the ultimate thing is to have Black self-respect. Not lying to yourself, to ourselves. We should try it.
Back to Kamaria's comment the early about this the next generation, this coming generation has been really targeted with these gender wars. The prior generations were kind of different, that we didn't have this social media. We couldn't like click a couple of buttons on the phone and then be bombarded with Black males and Black females mistreating each other in all ways, shapes, and forms. So I just imagined these younger Black females and Black males who are exposed to this in that manner. And then if you follow the logic, it makes perfect sense why there's so much hostility and animosity amongst Black people, why there's so much just disruption and Black relationships. And it's because we are in a system of racism and white supremacy, and very, very few of us have the will and or ability to counter it or want to counter it. It's really tragic, but Black relationships will not improve as long as we are in a system of racism and white supremacy, nor will Black relationships improve as long as we refuse to look at our situation honestly and truthfully without falsehoods. Because sitting down at a table like this and pretending that we're men and women is just lies. We're lying to ourselves and we're lying to everyone who is going to see this video.
Agreed. Well said by the panel. I have nothing else to add. So this is the last clip that I had. Gonna be wrapping it up.
Fresh, great idea was don't tell Myra.
Give that up. You can watch the rest of that clip on your own time if you like. Would recommend it. But just gonna give my last brief advertisement. Once again, get your copy of Produce. Go to producejustice.com. Get your copy of the code book by Neely Fuller Jr. Go ahead and grab the ISIS papers as well by Dr. Francis Cress Welsing. 2 highly recommended books, pieces of literature. Reading is more important than watching television. I have nothing else to add. I think this was a constructive business meeting.
I put a video in the chat. It'll be a good full circle because that interview from Kanye was from last year, and that video I sent is from this year, 2022.
Okay, let me cue. I think I did click on that. Victim of racism, Kanye.
Day I wasn't allowed to know. Day I wasn't allowed to know.
You guys hear that?
Yes, sir.
Where her party was. There's nothing legal. They're saying that these are the kind of games that's being played. At the light, it's the kind of thing that really has affected my health for the longest. And I'm just not playing. I'm taking control of my narrative this year. I'm being the father, the best father, the yay version of a father. And I'm not finna let this happen. And we're gonna be in real time. Take a slight right turn onto I-405 right here. North. Chicago, happy birthday. I love you. And I'm just putting this online because I need y'all support. I didn't call Kim, text the nannies. I got on the phone with Tristan. He said, he asked Chloe, won't nobody give me the address to my daughter's birthday party right now? That's going to imprint in her mind that I wasn't there for her. You get what I'm saying? Like, birthday, I wasn't allowed to know where her party was. There's nothing legal. They're saying that.
Wow.
Yeah.
You know, victims will be victims. You know, you just don't lie to yourself. You know.
Yeah.
This is the reality of it.
And now he has it's just tragic. Kanye West, he has helped a white supremacist Kim Kardashian produce non-white children, and now Kanye West is being kept away from these non-white children, as this is very common in the system on white supremacy, racism. But now these non-white children are just around just really suspect white people. You know, now his offspring have to be hanging around with Pete Davidson, which is in a song Kanye West just wrote about, where he says he wants to beat Pete Davidson's ass. So it's just a real tacky and trashy situation all around. Should be motivation for all of us to just understand racism and white supremacy and to stay out of bed with white people, because this is tacky, trashy, and terroristic. Who knows what kind of victimization those non-white children are going to go through because of Kim Kardashian and the white people she's around.
It seems to me that the white supremacists are showing him better than any of us can tell him.
Oh yeah, yep,
absolutely.
And, I remember Kanye West yelling something about his daughters won't do Playboy, and the question comes to mind: who's trying to get your daughters to do Playboy? You know, we are in a very, very powerful system. If you do not understand what is taking place, the danger is just even more so clear and ever present.
Agreed. All right. Well, I guess we could go ahead and get into closing comments. I can go ahead and get started. It's okay too if you don't have anything to say, but constructive business meeting. We'll be hoping to do something like this in the future. Thank you to CRWS for hosting us. Make sure you tune in for our book study on Race Code War. I think you'd find constructive information on it. That is on Sundays at 11 a.m. Pacific, 2 p.m. Eastern. I don't know what time it is, London time. Other than that, anybody else got any closing comments?
Please like, share, and subscribe. And
I think it was an excellent business meeting. I can't wait for the next one. And yeah, everybody, take care, be safe, maintain.
I used to want to be like Kanye when I was more confused. I would just encourage all victims of racism to want to be themselves and to want to be a person who wants to use their time and energy, thought, speech, and action to help to eliminate racism, white supremacy. Don't be like Kanye. Don't be like these so-called role models, so-called entertainers, white or non-white. Be like yourself and attempt to eliminate racism, white supremacy.
I found this was constructive, and hopefully I can participate more in the future.
Last thing I want to say is don't be serious about silly things. Thank you for having me.
Oh, and thank you for having me as well.
Great. Thank you, everybody. As 05T6 would say, CRWS signing out.